welcome to Fictional Narrative. I'm Neri, and today I want to talk about The Wife Stalker by Liv Constantine. So as I'm aware, the author is actually a duo, and I believe they're both sisters. They have a series called The Last Mrs. Parrish, and I think it's a pretty popular one too. Now, The Wife Stalker I picked up a couple years ago at a secondhand bookstore, and I started reading it this year, and it is absolutely one of the books that really shocked me this year. It's a fast read. I read it all in one sitting. The book mostly revolves around two characters. That's two point of views. So you have Piper and you have Joanne. Piper just moved into town and she's restarting her life. She has a very mysterious past, and she is the point of view that we start with. And she meets a lawyer named Leo Draco, who is representing one of her clients for her new agey retreat business. Leo's been depressed for a while. He's a successful lawyer, but he's coming out of like a fog of depression, and meeting Piper was like a breath of fresh air. So the other point of view that we see is Joanna. Joanna is someone that I find surprising in this entire story because she is so clever, so resolute, but at the same time so off-putting. This is not going to be a spoiler-free review, by the way. If you still want to pick up this book, it is an excellent and fast read. The way we're introduced to Joanna is inside Leo's home. And she's taking care of the kid. She's taking care of him. She's hoping that he comes out of his depression soon. There seems to be like a rift between them. She's planning a party that he does annually for him. And in the beginning of this book, it would seem that Joanna is the wife, right? And so we follow Joanna in this struggle of slowly losing her husband to a new woman, because she is not someone who is as put together as Piper is, as exciting as Piper is. She takes care of the kids, but it's a boy and a girl. But the daughter is a little bit standoffish, and it may just be because she's getting older, so she's kind of distancing herself from her mother. Joanna ends up having to go home to her mother's house to take care of her mother who broke her leg, and she receives divorce papers from Leo. And in the meantime, she's also seeing this therapist who you can really tell throughout this story is not a good therapist for Joanna. She'll tell Joanna, she'll advise Joanna. Joanna's not listening to her. She starts to sound like a danger to herself and other people. The therapist just doesn't seem to be effective at all. After divorcing Joanna, Leo marries Piper, and Joanna starts to spiral. So she starts to actually investigate who Piper is. What is the mystery of her past? And she goes as far back as to finding the ex-wife of Piper's previous marriage, where we find out that Piper was married to a man who also ended up leaving his wife for her. And that man had a teenage daughter, and they die under mysterious circumstances that do not have anything to do with Piper. However, Joanna thinks differently, and so she meets up with this man's ex-wife. And the ex-wife is remorseful and angry, and, remorseful in that she should have made her relationship work. Remorseful in that, I wish I fought for this relationship, or maybe my daughter would still be alive. That type of thing. But she's still very, very angry at Piper, and how dare Piper think she can just start over and have a new life and repeat the same cycle again. This woman is honestly worried about Joanna's kids and how Leo is going to end up if they don't fit into the picture perfect life that Piper wants to have. Just as just as her daughter rebelled against Piper because she saw Piper as the homewrecker in her parents' marriage. So essentially, Piper goes from the daughter's sailing instructor to then marrying her dad. So of course the teenager is going to be like, you're not my mom. And suddenly both the girl and her dad, who are very, very good sailors, go out on a boat with Piper, and just that's the end. Meanwhile, in gathering all this information, Joanna is just spiraling, and we find out a lot more about her past. She's from a broken home. Her mother doesn't really work. She has to provide everything for her mom. So, as soon as she could, she was at her mother's beck and call. Her father left when she was younger. Leo represented to her stability, just as he represents stability to Piper. And if Leo were to ever flip the script on either of them, it's possible that Piper might just implode. Currently, we're watching that happen with Joanna. So at this point, Joanna is doing her private investigation thing. She's dealing with her mother. She's dealing with the fact that she's lost her family. She's dealing with the fact that she is very well aware that her therapist is not effective in any way. And honestly, if she wanted an effective therapist, she would have to shop for that therapist. There's no chemistry between her and this therapist whatsoever. And Joanna has gone from the wife to the wife stalker. The thing is, this is a twist in itself. It's a red herring that I should have seen coming a mile away. It's something that's right in front of me, but because it's so obvious, I didn't even think about it. I knew there was something kind of weird about this narrative because this divorce should not have happened this quickly. At this point, Leo has remarried. He's chosen Piper. Nobody in his life is acting like this is weird, this is wrong. They just accept it. Piper is learning to be a stepmother to two small children. Leo's a great father, so he wants someone who's going to be involved with his kids. And she's starting to learn little boundaries and how to get along with the children. So she'll try to do things like move out old furniture and move in new furniture that's to her taste. And if Leo was just a single man with no past and no ex that his kids are holding on to, it probably would have been an easy transition, but that was a boundary that she had to learn. She cannot push the children to replace their mother in any tiny little way. Meanwhile, Joanna is trying to get a hold of Leo. She's worried about her kids. She wants her man back. His assistant is stopping her at every point, to the point where he is saying, I think I am just going to have to get a restraining order against her. I mean, Joanna in the beginning of the book tells us that she left her own budding law career so that she could be there for Leo. And he's repaying her in every deed that comes off ungrateful. And it comes down to who is really the smarter player on the field. Is it Joanna or is it Piper? And so far, Joanna is on the losing end. But that doesn't mean that she isn't clever. Eventually, the reason why the daughter has such a tense relationship with Joanna comes out, and it could be the fact that she has, issues with her mother herself, and therefore it's kind of translating into their relationship. Or it could be because the daughter is not her daughter. And she was never Leo's wife. She left a law career that she was pursuing while she was his assistant because his wife died. And that's why Leo was so depressed. That's why Leo felt as much of a family man that he is, and throughout this book he's never been the type to like step out. That's why he is the figure of stability. That's why he seems like such a prize. He is a good man. He never stepped out on his wife. He fell for Piper based on their natural chemistry after his wife passed because of Joanna. Because the daughter saw Joanna push his wife. She literally pushed his wife, Olivia, off a cliff. And this is how her story ends. She gets taken in, and you think, I'm puffing it up. Joanna's not a clever character at all. Look at all that she did for a man who was never interested in her, never saw her that way. She's obsessed. She's out of control. Did she spiral? Yes. What were those divorce papers? Severance papers. They were her severance package. He fired her. So Joanna versus Piper, Joanna loses. But we get this interesting little nugget of information. The reason why Joanna tried so hard with that therapist is because she herself was investigating that therapist. Honestly, if Joanna just was sane and a private investigator, she could make quite the living. The therapist she went to, she didn't go to her because she was a therapist. She didn't go to her because she was a good therapist. Joanna went to her because when her dad left her mom, he went to live with a different woman, had a different family, and that therapist was her half-sister, who got everything that she didn't. There was supposed to be tuition money for Joanna when she wanted to pursue her law education, but there was none of that because it went to her half-sister. So in all that, was Joanna even right about Piper? Here's the genius about Piper. At the end of the book, when we look at Piper's history, everything that Joanna found that points to Piper being a crazy murderer could absolutely be true. Yes, she was a homewrecker in her previous relationship, but before that, she married her high school sweetheart, who, after a tumultuous relationship when they moved to Hollywood and she was trying to be an actress and he was trying to be a screenwriter, he had come into the age to have access to his trust fund. And they went on a hike and only one of them came back. And then she inherited his trust fund. So when she remarries the father of her student, who she's teaching to sail, kind of the same situation. Daughter's acting up. Piper does not deal well with children at all. One day they go sailing, they don't come back. Piper gets richer. And all this time that Joanna was trying to pass this information along to Leo, he received it, he read it, and he does say to Joanna in the end, he knew all of this about Piper. She was honest about all of it, but because of the mysteriousness of those circumstances and what the official rulings are, she was able to play it off to him as if she had nothing to do with it. And the ex-wife of her late husband was a stalker. And now Joanna's led her stalker to her. Leo is a criminal attorney, by the way, but he's definitely the type that's like, I believe in my clients and I look for the best in them and for them. So, I don't know. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's his experience that tells his gut that she is not a danger. But by the end of the book, it hints that she is. And it's a great cliffhanger. If this wasn't a dual POV, we would be missing out on so much. But it is such a fun read. I do recommend it. If the light will let me recommend it to you, I do recommend it to you. And if you stayed this long, thank you so much. Cozy Saturday will be up on Saturday, and I will see you next time. Bye!